It's important when you're basket weaving or braiding that these wires are all flat and parallel to each other on the beginning, so that they're not all clumped and overlapped, just because you won't waste as much, especially when it's silver or gold. It, makes a difference. So I'm just going to set this up, use the clamp, place my starting. Now this is 5 wires or 6 wires, I don't know. Let me check here. 5 wires. But they're 0.5 millimeters each, which really makes a difference for how our braid looks. So don't just, choose 0.5 wire because that's what you have. The bonus with 0.5 wire is it makes a finer braid. Whereas if you do a 1 millimeter wire, it makes it a little bit thicker. Soldering 1.5 wire or 0.3 wire or whatever is much more difficult to get a really good joint on the wires, and therefore your solder joint may be more noticeable. And at your stages, you probably want to stick to 0.5 above. Don't go too thin. This actually might be 0.3 wire. So watch what happens. I'm going to do a 5 wire with just 1 wire first. So 3 on one side, I keep them parallel, outside wire into the middle, outside wire into the middle. And I'm just keeping my hands on them so that they stay in place. And then they have to hold these ones to support this wire as it comes across. Don't get confused on which wire is the outside wire. If you do, you can look back there. It's a little bit easier to figure it out when you're using bimetal. You can say, okay, I'm on the silver one, or I'm on the copper one, or I'm on the brass one. Remembering when you're using various metals, white gold bends differently than yellow gold. Brass bends differently than copper, and you should have learned that already in your twist samples. So these little guys, if you look at this, look how fine that braid is. If that's going to be my center braid, great. Except for I could, all of a sudden, I could use 2 of these in a side by side in my ring. I could use 3 of these. These could be on either side of a slightly heavier braid. In your own time, you can even use this technique to do twisted wire ones, just like your closed sample. And this is actually why I had you do a closed sample on that first project, was so that you might have the ability to do something. So that is super fine. And I'll be bringing these to school on Wednesday so you can see them. The other thing I can do is I can treat these 2 wires. Actually, I'm going to grab another wire here. I can pretend that these wires are groups. So I don't have to, I'm just going to, for the sake of making this work, I don't have to just use individual wires. I can use groups of wires, which give you different braids and different twists and whatnot. I can twist braids, although it's not such a great idea. So this is my new wire, and I'm just going to get it in here. So I'm going to pretend that's a group of 2. Here's a group of 2, and here's a group of 2. These are my middle wires. And I'm going to, when I'm doing multiple wires again, I have to overlap them and slide them up so they stay parallel. Overlap, slide it up so they stay parallel. Overlap, make sure that on the side you can see which one is on the outside and keep it to the outside. Overlap, slide it up. Now I'm getting a little far away and this is fine wire, so I'm putting my finger under there to support it. As usual though, I'm trying to keep these parallel on the outside. The more wires, the more confusing, the harder the solder joint. So if you want to challenge yourself, small multiple wires is much more difficult than big wires. So if you look at this one, it gives me a totally different braid. Again, this is just a 3-wire now, but they're groups of 2. Overlap, support, keep parallel, slide. Overlap, support, keep parallel, slide. Overlap, support, keep it parallel, slide. You see how I'm switching hands all the time. It's important that you don't, try to rush it. Now you get this totally different braid just by adding that other wire. Is this more desirable? I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. 3 of these might make a really interesting ring.